Hello and welcome to Property Question Time with me, Gemma Forte. This is the show where you get to ask your property-related questions to some industry experts, and today is no exception. So I have my panel here. Let me introduce you. We've got first up Paul Higgs, who is the Chief Exec of the Millbank Group, and of course, in your time, you've also been a developer, you're a trainer, chartered surveyor, the works. And then next up, Tony Gimple. Hello, Tony, Founding Director of Less Tax for Landlords. And finally, Simon Zutshi, who is the founder of Property Investors Network and, of course, author of Amazon best-selling Property Magic. Welcome, one and all. Right, we'll move straight on, get straight into a question, and I'll start with you, Paul, if that's all right. So this person is asking the following. I've recently secured planning permission to build a house and was hoping that somebody could clarify a few tax questions for me. My current house is a buy-to-let semi-detached with land at the side. The planning is to build an attached house on the land at the side, making my existing buy-to-let a mid-terrace. As a mid-terrace, its value will drop by 20% compared to its semi-detached status today. So I've got two options. Either build the second house and sell it, or sell the land to a builder. My current preference is to sell the land, but how will the tax work?
Okay, so I should start by pointing out that I'm obviously not a tax expert and they need to get specialist tax advice. Mm-hmm. Based on what I do know, I suspect that their best route would be to make the main property their principal private residence rather than have it rented out as a buy-to-let. Now, there'll be certain timescales around that, and the fact that they've already got planning permission could make things a little bit trickier, so I definitely need to look into that. But ideally make it your principal private residence. That means you can sell the land usually without capital gains tax for a start, depending on the area. By the sounds of things, it's quite small, so I think that'll be fine on that score. They talk about 3 different options in terms of building it themselves or selling it to a builder. I think there's actually a third option that could be the best, which would be to do some sort of JV with the builder, whereby these guys leave the land in the deal because they basically already own it, get a builder to build it for them and do some sort of JV where they divvy up the profits. I suspect that would be the thing that gives them the best return.
Oh, excellent. So that's good. Something they might not have thought about. So thank you for that.
And that was the real key. It's the best return. It's not a tax question. It's what are the commercials of the deal first.
Right.
Then how do we get the most tax efficient solution thereafter?
I must say, you really do need expertise because it's difficult to think about all the options and all the connotations that they throw up. Right, Tony. Here we go. So somebody's mother has recently died, leaving an amount of cash in the bank, which was about 160,000, and a property as well, which is worth around 200 to 225,000. She left a will with some small amounts to grandchildren of around 40,000 and the rest to them. So not quite sure about the inheritance tax liability. And as far as they can see, despite the total value of the estate being around £385,000, because the property comes to them, does the threshold start at 425 as it includes the property? My head hurts already. And if I read HMRC guidelines correctly, there's an additional 100,000 allowed because a property is involved.
Okay, so we can each give away £325,000, the nil rate band, to anybody other than our spouse or partner, free of inheritance tax.
Right.
Everything we leave to our spouse or civil partner currently is totally free of inheritance tax.
325 is no inheritance tax. Oh, okay.
Anything above that is taxed at 40%.
Right.
So if you've got an estate worth 650, that's £130,000 bill.
Right. Okay.
In addition, you can give away up to, in this tax year, a further £100,000 from the value of your principal private residence, providing that's going to direct descendants. So in effect, during this tax year, up to the 5th of April 2018, £425,000 can be given away before any inheritance tax is payable.
Okay.
Go through to 2021, that's gone up to £500,000.
Okay. So yeah, that's pretty good news for them then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Tony. Simon. This person says, I'm looking to invest in property and I'd like some guidance, mentoring on building a property portfolio. Companies offering portfolio management are quite easy to come across online. However, I'd prefer to work with an independent sole manager who practices what they preach. So my question is, how can I find such an individual or company? Are there more appropriate forums or websites that I can look on? So yeah, it's like finding someone really good and trustworthy.
Yeah, so there are lots of people out there who can help you.
Yeah.
I think there are two things here. First of all, there's a matter of education, and they mentioned mentoring is that someone could teach you what to do. But then also there are companies who could actually go and find the properties for you. Whatever you decide to do, I think you should start off by educating yourself, because even if someone's finding the property for you, you need to know that they know what they're doing and you never just take their word for it. So education is the important place to start. And actually, if you don't have the time at all and it means you're not going to invest, maybe getting someone else to do it for you is probably better than not doing it yourself at all, because you're missing out. As long as you check them out, you know what they're doing, and you get some great testimonials and recommendations.
Okay.
Having said that, learning how to do it yourself, I believe, is a much better way of doing it. You'll save yourself a fortune in fees. So the question is, how do you find the right person? So you could certainly go to network meetings, go onto forums, find other people who have used them and get word of mouth recommendations. There are lots of people who maybe have started to invest, they've had some success, and they pop up suddenly as an expert thinking they can teach other people. And they might be able to help you to a certain extent, but if they've only been doing it a few years, do they really have the depth of knowledge you need? The challenge with linking in just one person, if they're really that successful, well, sometimes they should be on holiday enjoying the fruits of their labour, and sometimes they'll be doing their own deals, and they may not be available to help you. So actually going to an organisation that has a bit of a network might help you, because then you're not reliant on one person.
Okay.
And I'd also be very wary of people who will try and educate you and also want to sell, because there might be a conflict of interest there. So never mix the two.
Okay, great advice there. Thank you very much indeed. Right, in this show, we like to have a golden nugget from our experts. So it could be about absolutely anything to do with property. So who are we going to pick on first? One of you two, I think. Anybody?
Yeah, why not?
Go on then, Tony.
Getting advice can be difficult. Really difficult, as that's already come across in the programme.
Yes.
And it's very important that whoever your advisors are, they all talk to each other, whether it's legal advice, accountancy advice, estate planning, financial advice, development, whatever.
Yeah.
All too often, you'll speak to 2 or 3 advisors for each individual part, and your message will become slightly distorted because you tell them what you assume that they want to hear. But they don't assume that you actually know whether what you're asking is right, and they don't talk to the other advisors. So everything gets pulled in different directions.
Right, okay.
So
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks, and not necessarily in the same kitchen cooking the same broth at the same time, because they've all got their own agendas. They can't help it.
Yeah.
The trick with advice is make sure the advisors all talk to each other, so they understand what they're doing, and it all links up, and you get cogent advice that works in the round.
Okay. So you're nodding away. You'd agree with that,
Absolutely,
would you,
yeah.
Simon?
Yeah, really important. I think, it's important not to take, because you go to a certain specialist and they will have their opinion based on their expertise. And whilst they will have a knowledge of everything, they may not particularly take everything else into account. So it's trying to get them all together in the same room or on a phone call together, so they all understand what you're trying to achieve, and they can give the appropriate advice to help you achieve whatever you want to do. Yeah.
And a personal pet hate of mine is when I'm going to get advice about something and then I start feeling like I'm being sold lots of other products. That always makes me quite suspicious, because do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like suddenly you're going to talk about, I don't know, something to do with property, and the next thing they're trying to sell you life insurance.
Well,
that annoys me.
That's not necessarily such a bad thing.
No?
Because rule number 1 for an advisor
Yeah.
is assume the client doesn't know what they don't know, and the only thing they're buying from you is that which you know and they don't.
Yeah.
So you may think you're being sold life insurance, but in the context, say, of the overall advice package, that life insurance is a key component. So the hard thing for you to do is to accept, I don't know what I don't know. That's why I've gone to that place in the first place.
Yeah. Well, it's not because they're getting backhanders.
That may well be the case, but
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily undermine
the necessity of having it.
Correct.
Yeah. He probably looked at me and thought this woman's going to die of stress taking on this project, and then I better sell her some life insurance.
Cool being a landlord.
You can always get a quote from him and then get a quote from someone else, but it's good of him to raise
Yeah.
the fact that actually you should be considering life insurance as part of your investing.
Yeah, and I suppose within your careers now, over the years, you'll have built up your little kind of army of people that you really trust and you know are good. For each type of thing.
And also, you always meet new people. You come across with, like, oh, actually, they can help me. So they come into the little inner circle of advisors.
Yeah. But I think, like you say, word of mouth.
Yeah.
Word of mouth is such with anything, whether it's babysitters, gardeners, property. It's good to have a recommendation.
I think it's really, really important with anyone to basically check them out, look at their track record, whatever it is that they're talking to you about or teaching you about in particular. Make sure that they've been there, seen it, and done it themselves. Because there's a whole lot of people out there that talk a good game and don't actually perform. So check people out properly is the key.
And the other thing, not only check that they've done it themselves, you want to check that they've become really good at teaching other people how to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
So look for case studies and people who have actually helped achieve what you want to achieve.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, do your research. All right, well, thank you so much. That's just part one of Property Question Time. We'll be back after this short break. Welcome back to Property Question Time with me, Gemma Forte, and my trio of experts who are Paul Higgs, Tony Gimple and Simon Zutshi. Right, Simon, I'm looking at you now for a golden nugget, please. A lovely little morsel of advice. What have you got for me?
So we've heard already on the show about using experts, and finding the right experts can be sometimes a challenge. So the best thing to do is get recommendations from other investors. And the easiest way to find them is to ask a great question. So there's a question which is, who do you know who, ... So who do you know who is a reliable plumber in this area? Who do you know who is a planning expert, can help me with this? And so when you meet other investors at network meetings or seminars, those kind of things, knowing when you go, what are you looking for, and asking that question. If you ask enough people, you will get some really good recommendations. And then go and check people out, ask referrals and case studies, and it's a great way to find the services and providers you need.
You know, it's funny because obviously this is nothing like not your level, but I actually find Facebook quite a useful tool. If you sometimes put on, hi guys, looking for, because they're all people you know, and no one's going to suggest someone that, you know, unless they think they're really, really good. So sometimes I even go on there.
Yeah, social media is a great way of doing it,
Yeah. Okay, and the thing is, the internet also does make it quite easy to check people out.
Yeah.
You should always Google people.
Yes, exactly. I've Googled all of you, by the way.
It's all true. Whatever you read.
It all checks out, it's fine. Okay, so Paul, I've got a question for you here. Somebody says, an opportunity has come up to buy a piece of land. It's currently got no planning permission. It's an end plot on a terraced street. Now, there used to be 2 houses on the plot going back many years, about 50 years. So I'm wondering if there are any experienced people out there who can guide me through the best process here. Can I apply for planning permission before buying the plot? Can I get someone out from the council for advice on its chances of being approved? That's a good question. I don't want to buy the land, then find out that it can't be built on. So will they come out just for advice, the council?
It's really interesting with the council. What tends to happen is that local authorities are really, really busy, depending on where they are. Okay, so if you're in perhaps London and the South East, where they're under massive pressure, you know, sometimes it's difficult to get the planners to talk to you, even when you're in the middle of a planning application. Okay? In other places of the parts of the country where perhaps they, you know, they want to see regeneration, they're much keener on development. Yeah, the planners will talk to you and they'll help you, and you know, you might not even have to pay them. In much of the country now, local authorities are running pre-application type schemes. So what that means, there's an official process whereby you can make a pre-application submission to ask them what they think. So you're basically asking for their sort of official advice. In some places that's for free. In most of the country now you've got to pay for it.
Right.
But it's you know, it is a good way if you don't really know what you're doing. It's a good way of getting a view from the planners. I would add though that to some extent, you know, the answer you get is only as good as the question you ask. Yeah,
and it's obviously going to be quite time consuming, isn't it? And I know that with these things, sometimes that time is an issue, isn't it?
It is. So generally, you're better view might be to talk to a planning consultant initially to see what they think. And to answer the second part of the question, let's assume you get some reasonable advice from a planning consultant, and you do decide that you want to buy the thing. A planning consultant alone isn't going to tell you all the answers, so there is additional help and advice that you need. But the safest way to manage the process is to buy the property conditionally upon planning. So it's like, okay, I know it's worth 500 grand as it is. I think I can get planning permission to put a plot on the side, which will be worth 250. Therefore, I'll pay you 250, subject to me getting planning permission. So that's a conditional deal.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds very sensible.
You could also secure an option on it where you've got the right to buy but not the obligation to, and often developers will go along, they'll agree a price getting planning. So it's similar, but you're not actually completing, you're not actually exchanging rather. So it's a slightly different way of doing it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Right, Tony, another question here. Is it possible if a property is unregistered that it can avoid inheritance tax?
No.
Bit dodgy, yes. I'm aware of a situation where someone I know died recently. They had a small holiday cottage as a second home that isn't on the land registry. The heirs have put the first house on the market, but as the total of this estate will be valued at more than 325, it should attract inheritance tax. Could they get away with this if they tried to sell the holiday home after the rest of the estate is settled? Say by putting it on the market in the future?
The short answer is no.
No, they're really illegal.
Yeah, it is what it is at date of death. Effectively, that's what it was.
Yeah,
Therefore, you have to get probate, pay the taxes, etc. Going forward, it's a different question. But no, you just are where you are with that one.
Death and taxes, the only things that are sure in life, aren't they?
Absolutely. If they're not, let me know. I'd like to be your agent. Usual terms and conditions apply.
But I mean, you can understand, why they've asked. I guess that's just
absolutely.
It's worth an ask.
Absolutely.
Simon. This person says, I'm looking for some general advice for my mum on how she should manage a fairly large property portfolio that she's inherited. It's funny, isn't it? These things just sort of happen overnight. Suddenly overnight, you're expected to know how to manage all of this. So she's inherited 10 properties. They're all 3-bed semis in Worksop. And she inherited them about 15 years ago. They've got no mortgage on them, and they're worth approximately $1 million in total, because approximately 100,000 each. They're currently all in her name and provide a rental income of about 40 grand a year. This provides her sole income. On top of this, she's also got the house she lives in. This is worth about 300k, and she's got a small mortgage on it, 30k, which she's due to pay off next year. But she's struggling to maintain all the properties. It's all tied up, isn't it? So what should she do? Wouldn't she maybe just sell a couple? What do you think?
Yeah, again, it really depends what she wants to do. So it sounds like she's managing the properties herself, which, as she's been owning 15 years, she must be getting on herself, and so do really want to be managing. So she could give them to a letting agent to take away the hassle. That would have a slight reduction in the income she makes. But obviously it's an allowable expense, will reduce her tax slightly. And actually, maybe she'll have a better lifestyle if she's not then worrying about these houses. She might want to sell one of the properties, and there would be some tax to pay on that, but that would give her the money to clear her own mortgage, so reducing her outgoings there. And in fact, obviously she's got some children. She might want to think about some inheritance. A good tax expert could maybe help you with that, but maybe she could think about giving some of those properties away. She wouldn't be able to get the income though, because otherwise that's not a true gift. Or actually what she could do is she could maybe refinance some of those properties, take out a load of money tax-free. Now obviously the income would go down, but then she could live off some of the extra money she's taken out tax-free. She can give some of that money away to her family, and then when she's no longer here, she'll have a smaller estate because she'll have some debt that is taken off the total assets to give the net assets. So it might be a good strategy to minimise her tax. Although I say I'm not a tax expert, we do have one here, and she should really seek expert advice based on what she's specifically wanting to achieve. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it comes down to what she actually wants to achieve in the first place. Where is she going with this? But it's quite possible with a portfolio of that size and makeup to structure it in such a way that income taxes will be no more than 20%, and that it'll be able to be passed on free of inheritance tax as going concern as a trading business to future generations.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm no expert, but I would say she's in a position where she's got loads of options because she's got, you know, those assets. And maybe for her, I totally understand, she might just be feeling a bit overwhelmed by it all.
Yeah, but that's why she needs to get advice. It's better to do something about it now, because if you leave it until you suddenly die, you're going to pay a load of tax. And unfortunately, that's what most people do. They don't plan.
And she's got all of those 10 properties to play about with.
What a waste that would be if you'd give, you know, best part of 40% of that away to the taxman.
Yeah. Okay, so lots of options. It's a really positive message. You'll be able to sort that situation out. Fabulous. Right, I think we've got to one more golden nugget. I'm not calling you a golden nugget. I'm saying, have you got a golden nugget?
I might be. Yeah, interesting. Well, you just mentioned options. Simon mentioned options earlier, so I'll tell you a little bit about options. So, interesting. So when I first started development, long time ago, and discovered option agreements, for me, it was absolutely massive. So, you know, I realised how you can potentially control land for sometimes not a lot of money. So, could be a £1 option fee, without even having the obligation to buy it. So, you know, that is absolutely massive. I think actually it was John D. Rockefeller, I sometimes quote, the first billionaire that said you should control everything and own nothing. So I've always quite liked that quote, and the way you can do that is by clever legal agreements, including option agreements. So that is something that are used quite a lot in the development industry, but the important thing is you need to know how to use them. And importantly, if you think about it, you know, someone isn't going to let you control their land unless they're really convinced there's a good reason. That good reason needs to be that you are the expert that can add massive value to their land. So that's the way it works. So lots of people talk about option agreements. Oh, you just go and tie up on an option agreement.
Yeah.
Yes, you can, but in terms of the mechanics and the negotiation that goes into that, you need to be able to demonstrate that you are the expert that can add massive value to the person's land or opportunity. It's got to be a very good reason for someone to enter into an opportunity, into an option agreement with you.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. So much advice today, so many golden nuggets. Please join us again here at Property Question Time with me, Gemma Forte, and thank you so much to my guests, Paul, Tony and Simon. And if you've got any questions at all for future programmes, please get in touch. info@property-tv.co.uk is the email address. And of course, there's our website, all the W's, property-tv.co.uk. See you soon.